If you ever feel like as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a founder, that you are smack dab in the middle of chaos, then you want to listen to today's episode. Jerry McNamara understands what it's like to build a significant business. He's done it 5 times over. And as a multi-time CEO, he helps other CEOs accelerate and have fun again. And that's not a word by mistake, fun. He's very intentional about using that word. We talk about that in today's episode. Jerry has been featured in Franchise 500 2 times, Inc. 500 2 times, Business Journal Fast 3 times. He has been named Trend Best Places to Work, and he is proving that good guys finish first since 1974. Jerry's a guy who sees the world in a similar way that I do, and I know that you're going to gain a lot of value from today's conversation. Let's hop into the conversation. Jerry, tell us the story of an experience that has radically formed and shaped your unique perspective, how you view the world today. What's that story?
Thinking about 2 of them. So from a business point, I'll give you the business point of view one. But the first company that I helped run, Katie, we were a high growth company, made it to the Franchise 500, 5.9 million to 15 million in 18 months. We were raising venture capital 3 different times. I had a $5 million check sitting in the middle of a table that we turned down. And like any good 26-year-old who was hard driving, I started sleeping on the couch outside of my office and, working 100-hour weeks, to the point where on Valentine's Day, I felt like I was having a heart attack. And I remember laying on the gurney and having those little electrodes hooked up to my chest and looking at the little EKG blip, 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 and counting the dots in the ceiling tiles and thinking to myself, what have you done? At what cost has all the price of this growth and people knowing who you are? I couldn't help anyone laying on that hospital gurney. There was no one that I could help. I couldn't help my family, my friends. I couldn't help the business. And I just thought, boy, there has to be a different way to do this. And I think that's one of those seminal moments that I've thought about. I think if you pursue a life where you are trying to become financially rich and become emotionally bankrupt, then you've missed the point of the game, because you have to have both sides of this. And like you, I've been a hard driver, a high achiever, 5 different businesses. And at the end of the day, what are we doing all of this for? I think it's regrounding ourselves and getting really clear about our vision for the world. What's the impact that we want to go make? Our values, which are really the operating system. It's when we don't act in concert in that way, we get that little pit in our stomach, like, hey, that's not who I aspire to be. That's not who I want to show up to be. And, your actions, you put those things in alignment, and suddenly the world opens up to you because you're living your life on your terms. And to me, that's the highest purpose that we should all be pursuing. And so I'm grateful to have had that experience at 26, because talk about grabbing you by the nape of the neck and saying, wow, you can run really hard for a long period of time, but it will catch up to you. And it did catch up to me for sure.
And what's so interesting, Jerry, is I can imagine some other dimension where the future you has a conversation with 26-year-old hustling, grinding, focused on these really big numbers self, and trying to convince you that, like, hey man, you need to slow down. Like, this is not sustainable. And let me show you. And yet that 26-year-old you, until that moment, probably would not have been open to that. And you probably run into that in your coaching, right? I had a client who, her business was really taking off, and I was trying to show her how to do it in a way that would create a lot of more time and space in her life. And she wasn't interested in that. And so I was like, okay, if that's what you want to build, I'll help you build that. And it was 6 months into that kind of rocket ship ride that she was like, I hate my life, Katie, help me change this. I'm like, okay, now you're ready to build that other kind of a business. And so, I think everybody who's listening can relate to that. Luckily, I wasn't on a gurney, but I can only imagine how dramatic that was. at that point, you have built a business, you have responsibilities, you have contracts, you have all of these obligations. How did you unwind yourself from that life of chaos that you had kind of created that maybe was oriented in like, let's make as much money as possible, even if I'm working 100 hours a week? How did you begin to unwind that?
We ended up breaking that company up and selling it off 6 months later. And
Wow.
it was not a heart attack that I was having, although it presented that way. It was my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 195 over 96, and
Holy cow.
I was a ticking time bomb. And by the
Oh
time we
my
had
word.
broken that company up and sold it off, the very next month, my blood pressure was back to 120 over 80. And it's a testament to the stress that we endure as entrepreneurs. And things that I've learned, like your client, and being able to go back and tell 26-year-old Jerry, um, the best advice I've ever gotten came from my brother. My brother loved to party more than he loved to go to school, so he got kicked out of college after a year and went into the Navy. Grateful for his service, but we grew up. We had bunk beds in a room, and that's how we grew up. And he looked at me as he was headed off to boot camp, and he said, "Learn from my mistakes. I made them for you." Now, I was 12 years old, and it was a moment that I just was able to say, I'm supposed to learn from my own mistakes. And it was this transformative notion that I don't have to learn from my mistakes. I have to learn from the mistakes of others, which made me highly perceptive and highly aware. Yes to this, no to that. Yes to this, no to that. And so I think that's one of the greatest gifts. We don't have to make all the mistakes ourselves and take those lessons. We can just be highly aware and watch what's happening across the universe and say, but that's not for me, or that is for me. And, to your client's point, I think more and now are the words of the devil. Society is constantly telling us, right, Katie? I mean, you need more, you need it now. And my point to people is only if you want it. If that's what aligns
So
for you
good.
and sets your life on fire, then absolutely let's go for it. Because I've been on a couple rocket ships. It's been super fun. It's been super stressful putting those guardrails in place. But if you're doing it just because you think society demands that of you, then boy, not only is society going to be disappointed because you're never going to do it right enough, fast enough, whatever it is, and you're going to be disillusioned because you're living your life on someone else's terms, and that's never going to be good enough.
So true. We could end right now. And that needs to be the core takeaway. What do you want? There's this great rat study, and maybe you're familiar with this one, but it's apparently rats do like to exercise. They like to run, even if they're not running away from a cat. And so they have this experiment where one rat can jump in and out of its treadmill wheel.
The wheel.
So it gets to decide whether or not it's exercising. And then there's a neighboring rat his wheel is connected to the first guy's wheel. And he's basically forced to exercise, right? It's not his decision. That's the only difference. They're both getting the same amount of exercise. And what's interesting is the first rat, the one who gets to choose whether or not the wheel is turning, has all the markers of great health. And the other one has all the markers of extreme stress.
Yes.
Which is so fascinating because they're getting the same level of exercise. One's choosing, one's not. And what I'm hearing you say is, what do you want?
No, I think just a couple of things, right? One is your physical health, right? Diet, exercise, and sleep. That's the foundation of life. We have to get that piece right. But boy, is it critically important in today's day and age. I mean, mental health coming out of COVID, now in places where the government's no longer putting $5.5 trillion into the marketplace where everyone looks super smart. Reality of it is you have to operate your business really well. Now we have uncertain economic conditions, and that's creating more and more stress and anxiety and uncertainty for all of our leaders. So mental health is critical to that. And what I have learned is having that internal locus of control. I impact the world versus an external locus control, which is the world impacts me. I always give the example of it's like Buzz Lightyear and Eeyore. And so Buzz Lightyear is to infinity and beyond because I'm going to go make this impact. I don't care what's happening in the world. And Eeyore is always going to sit there and complain about the rain and that it's too hot and just all of these external things that it's like, so what? Now what? And once you learn that you have agency and control over your choices to go make an impact on the world, it changes the dynamic. So the same situation can be happening. And I'm going to look at it and say, my gosh, it's raining outside. Thank goodness for the trees and the rivers and the grass. And someone else is going to say, oh, I guess I have to bring an umbrella today. And so that agency is, I think, so important in your mental health. And it's the story that you just told about the two rats. One had agency over their choices and one was being forced upon it. And that comes as no surprise to me.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I think I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and there's always this perception that more and bigger is better. And I'm hearing you say that's not necessarily true. And yet over your shoulder, it says that you're positively impacting 5 million people in the next 4 years. Jerry, how are you doing that? Learning the lessons of what's sustainable, what's not from your past. How are you doing that in a sustainable way? I'm really curious about that.
So I also understand the ability of leverage and that I won't do this alone. And being able to enroll other people on the mission, because I don't know about you, Katie, but I've never met anyone who showed up to work and said, you know what, I'd really like to suck at work today. However, there are plenty of people who are ineffective in their roles. And what I say is, it's not their fault. It's us as the senior leaders, the people who are directing the right resources to go on the right opportunities to create these compelling places where people want to show up, want to go do this. And so for me, this is not just a business mission. This is a life goal of mine, because for the first time in the last business that I was brought in to run, I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing.
Wow.
I love the people that I was serving. I love the day-to-day. It was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it means not to like what you do every day. And we know that 75 to 80% of Americans don't like the work that they do every single day. That's amazing and insane to me. But it was the first time that I couldn't change the rules of the game. I'd always been able to change the rules of the game and make an impact on the business. And so I just thought, man, could you imagine showing up and feeling like this every day? This would be horrible. And so I think that's, the gifts that God gave me to do the heavy lifting of business. I've always loved wrapping my lips around the fire hydrant and having them turn it on full blast and say, Jerry, don't miss a drop. And of course, you're going to miss drops. But I don't know anyone who set out to create a business where people didn't show up and love what they do and to make an impact. And, one of the ways that you can measure impact is by the dollars that come back to you that you get earned in the marketplace. And so for me, this is about how do you take, in my world, my framework, there's 3 elements of creating amazing companies and teaching that into the world. Because I know that at our heart of hearts, we all want to be great, whether it's a great parent, whether it's a great business person, a great employee, any of those things. We want to show up because that is, it's just that fulfillment piece. Who doesn't want to go do a great job? And so, over the next number of years, I'm in the middle of writing 2 books. One is the 9 Principles of Personal Performance, because every business needs great people. And one of the things that I get frustrated about when I work with senior leadership teams is, and I have them assess the people on their team. And sometimes they say, oh, that person's probably a 5 or a 6. And I say, why are we expecting outsized growth with mediocre people that we know are on our team? Why are we doing that, right? And I want to see everyone succeed. So let's give everyone the roadmap of creating a really principle-guided, living your life on your terms. So that's the first piece of it, 9 Principles of Personal Performance. The second piece is the business acceleration model. Every business should operate on a framework. So when we talk about principles, right, we should have a decision-making framework. We should be having a hiring framework. And the reason we have frameworks is that they create consistent, repeatable, predictable results. That's really
Yeah.
why we do that. And so it's the way in which I've run my 5 businesses, now have advised over 100 more, of how to create an amazing company where people love to show up. And boy, one of my mindsets that I bring to things is, can we create companies that are so compelling that people would show up for free? Now, I'm not suggesting we're not going to pay our people, but imagine if
Yeah.
people would show up and do it for free. That's going to be an amazing place to go spend your time and talent. And then the third piece is what I call the leadership gap. When you think about leaders who have been promoted, it's because they're great at doing the doing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at leading. And we never really take the time to prepare our leaders for leadership. So I've broken that course down, which I think is best experienced with other leaders and having a shared experience. And so it's the leader as individual. What are the promises that I'm going to make every day to my people so that I can create that predictable environment for them to
Mm-hmm.
perform? The second piece of it is all the technical skills that I need to be successful. So, like project management and communication, all of those pieces. And then the last is the leader is strategist. How do we outperform the marketplace by outthinking the marketplace? And I think if you put those 3 pieces together, you equip senior leaders and entrepreneurs to really outperform the marketplace and create compelling places where people want to show up. The big bet, here's my big bet, Katie, is if you're good at work, you have the potential to be great at home. And if you're good at home, you have the potential to be great at work. And so, my first value is love your people and treat them as whole people. I don't know how to do it any other way. It's all about how do you create this holistic environment that honors the people who give us their time and talent to come along on the mission to go make the impact, and to do it in a really fun, interesting, and compelling way that people just feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I get to do this. This is amazing. So that's how I'll do it over the next number of years. We're about to turn another year, another calendar. So it'll be 3 years. But I feel good about the trajectory that we're on for sure.
That's so cool, Jerry. Like, I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical when I saw that over your shoulder, and I was like, how are you measuring this? Like,
Yep.
how are you doing it in a way that's sustainable for you and your family? And I think there's a lot of people who throw out big numbers, and it's a lot of vanity, if we're honest.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually have a real thoughtful strategy behind it all, and you have, through these books that you talked about, you have a way to actually deliver on your promises, which is super cool.
Yeah,
Super cool.
I think I don't know if you've had this experience, but I get really frustrated with senior leadership teams. We're in strategic planning, season. Everyone's doing their
Yeah.
strategic plan for
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
Right? It is so easy to sit in a boardroom and determine the what. The what is easy. So what do we want to do? We want to grow sales by 10% next year. Okay, that's like the hallmark of lazy leadership when someone says, oh, we want to grow by 10%. I know that the leadership team is not very good. But the how is hard. How are we going to expect our teams to grow by 10%? Are we bringing 10% new products to the marketplace? Are we 10% better? Do we increase our efficiencies? It just doesn't come from anywhere. And the idea that, the board members get to sit in a ivory tower and put these targets out there without fact checking to say, is this even possible? What kind of pressure is that going to bring to our people day in and day out? And is that cost worth the price of growth that we want to drive? How do we resource it? So I'm a big believer of, yes, have big lofty goals. I've done some fun things in my life, but I also need to have a strategy to say, here's how I am going to go do this. So, if in the next 4 years I don't have 2 books and I'm not on stages presenting, then I know that I will have failed, because that is the how I will deliver and reach 5 million people.
So good. Tell us, over your other shoulder, you have Proven Chaos, which is your brand.
Yep.
And like, in a sense, you've told us a little bit about this, but tell me more specifically, what's the thinking behind Proven Chaos? You're doing this incredible work to support CEOs and entrepreneurs, develop as leaders, understand the models and strategies they need to execute to have that big impact and reach. What does Proven Chaos have to do with all of that?
Yeah. So most people get a kick out of Proven Chaos. It's because I typically work with higher growth companies, companies that have made places like the Inc. 500. But you've proven there's a marketplace, but you're in chaos because your people, your systems, your processes haven't kept pace. And so while you should be celebrating that success, typically the people that I start working with are a little bit stressed and frazzled because we started here and boy, we got down the road real fast and I'm not really in control of my business. So what I tell people is we're working to create calm out of the chaos because I know that stress doesn't make good decisions, and getting people to live, again, conscious intention, your life on your terms, bring it right back here to center to say, I don't want to grow, or I'm going to hire someone else in to help me with this growth because it's super important. My daughter's a cheerleader. It's super important to me that I get to her football games at 3:30 to support her and cheer her. And there's no amount of money that can be thrown my way for me to miss that. And so I'm not going to miss that. But you have to think about the resources that you need, either to intentionally say no to opportunities, which entrepreneurs are horrible at because we're in business to try and make money. When people say yes to us, we will figure it out. But the real trick is to be able to say, no, not now. Maybe down the road, I'll be in a position to help you, or to resource the opportunities. And that's how I think about that.
That's super cool. I like the kind of contradiction to each other, which creates a lot of curiosity around it too. Tell me about, your skill set is really unique and special. There are very few people who could walk into a rapid growth company that's like falling apart and with confidence say, oh yeah, we can get this to the next level. And I would guess there are core principles, there are proven models that you're utilizing that give you that confidence and that clarity to step into that chaos and organize it all and make sense of it all. What are some of those key either principles or models that you use to help these companies that are accelerating so quickly?
Yeah, I have been so lucky over the course of my career. I'm humbled all the time on the opportunities that I've been given. I'm just so humbled. When I think about models and frameworks, I first start with myself, and that is I am intellectually curious. I am a lifelong learner, and I believe that companies and people who win consecutively over time are constantly upgrading their thinking. You can't see, but there are hundreds of books over here. And so I just start there. A startling number of people never read a book after they finish their formal schooling, which is just shocking to me because I'm constantly reading. And so, the first piece is, am I investing in myself? Am I the type of leader that is worth following? And I think we have to answer those questions, first and foremost. But, to your point,
what does that look like for you? Because I think that in itself is really cool. And very few people would maybe even realize that you invest in yourself, right? That you work with a coach or whatever that looks like for you. But
I do. I mean, I have a whole community of CEOs that I work with. I have my own personal coach. I am constantly reading and investing in people. And, I'm a product of my product. And so when I think about this, like the 9 principles of personal performance, I ran 9 laps on our cul-de-sac here because that's important to me. I try and get 7 hours of sleep because that's important to me. And I've done the research to tell you why it's important and how to go do it. Right. And so it's utilizing the models that I've created to create these unfair advantages for myself and for other people. And so when I look at a business, I'm looking at it through the lens of the business acceleration model. I'm thinking about, for instance, I'll give you a for instance, there's 3 core functions of every business. It's marketing, sales, and operations. You got to deliver the product profitably. And when you think about it on a seesaw. So marketing and sales is on one side of the seesaw and operations is on the other. And someone's the fat kid, right? Someone's, you're bouncing back and forth on the seesaw. So it doesn't make sense to market and try and sell when your operations, we have no operational capacity left. We can't deliver another widget in the system. It's a bad use of company resources to have marketing and sales happening at scale. Just doesn't make any sense. So you just practically look and say, what do we have to do to add to the operations or upgrade the systems or be clearer on the processes to streamline that and to put more widgets through the system? And so I'm constantly looking at which side of the equation is out of balance. And then quite honestly, because I love to help businesses grow really fast, I'm trying to constantly break it. How do I get one side or the other to be out of whack? And, when you do this enough, when you're starting to see tipping points of like, oh, sales and marketing, that's really starting to work. We better circle back around because I know operational capacity might take 90 or 180 days to build. So if I wait for the sales and marketing to actually come through the pipeline, it's going to be too late. I'm not going to be able to deliver it. And so that's just like the easiest, simplest framework within the framework that I think about. But people don't understand why am I continually in stress? And part of that is not understanding the mechanics and levers in your business to say, oh, sales and marketing is working, operational capacity downflow is going to be an issue in 30, 60, 90, whatever it may be. And then the other piece of it is for entrepreneurs is what I call the high achievers trap, right? No one's going to be able to do it as good as you. Let me just raise my hand. Sure, I'll buy into it.
Yeah.
The reality of it is other people are way more talented than you are in very specific areas, and they're going to get better results than you're going to get. But, we try and get to this place where we have to do all the doing. And the reality of it is your job as the leader is not to do all the doing. In fact, it's irresponsible to try and do all the doing because you become the bottleneck. What you have to do is resource all the jobs to be done. So you have to stop and think about, here are all the things. And this is not just professionally, this is personally as well. So for instance, at our house, we have a cleaner. I love Miss Aaliyah. She comes and helps us out. I don't enjoy cleaning our pool. There's a pool cleaner. Kent, who I love, does our lawn. I mean, every place that I can buy back time, that is a better use of resources for me to do that. And you have to think about this. This is why I tell, owners and entrepreneurs, senior leadership teams, we are borrowing people's time and talent. They can take their time and talent anywhere that they want. It's an honor that they get to come and invest it with us. And if you are not approaching leadership in that way, I would challenge you that there are way more opportunities for you to upgrade how people come in, how they feel energized, all of those things. But I also know this, I ran a construction business, which is only funny because I don't even hang the pictures in my own house. My wife does that. But we went from 7 million to 30 million in 3.5 years. And what I learned really on was that you can't outwork scale. So the whole notion of like calling my wife and saying, oh, sweetheart, I'm going to work another 5 hours. We'll get to the end of this, by the end of next week. It doesn't work. You cannot physically do it. The only way you can catch scale, real scale, is upgrade your systems and process, implement technology to make it go faster, or the last piece is add more people. When in doubt, add more people. Most people do that backwards. They add more people first instead of optimizing the systems and process. And so sometimes you're in a lot of pain. The easiest path is to hire people. But I would tell you that should be the last piece that you do.
So good. Really good. Quick question for you. What would happen in your business and life if you could show up powerfully? As a coach to high-performing entrepreneurs, I help intelligent people like you do just that. And if you want to be inspired by people who are getting more done in 90 days than most people do all year, I'm going to invite you to go check out my case studies. The website is now.katierichardson, jerrymcnamara.com/case study. And the cool thing is we've got so many case studies there. You can find an entrepreneur who's just like you. I've also got a link for you down in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. I'm curious, Jerry, what's working now, specifically with you and, reaching this goal of helping 5 million people over the next 4 years and understanding that seesaw, sales and marketing versus operations. What's working now for you when it comes to trying to hit this goal?
You never go wrong loving your people. So let me just start there. The more love that I can put into the world, the easier this becomes. When I think about it from a business point of view, we have some real economic uncertainty around us. And so I have been telling people to really double down on their mental health, which is really to have a great morning routine, diet, exercise, and sleep. Make sure that you're reading, writing, thinking, meditating, praying as part of your morning routine. It's a secret superpower for people to have a morning routine to set themselves up for success. If you're rolling out of bed and expecting to be your best 5 minutes later, rolling to the office, I promise you it's not going to happen. And then just, doubling down on the important, painful problem that you solve. I think sometimes, when businesses are going really good for a long period of time, we get a little unfocused and undisciplined in all the products and all the services that we're bringing to the market because everything that we touch is turning to gold. And the reality of it is it's not turning to gold. And when the economy pulls back, we should retrench and rethink about what opportunities we're pursuing because not all of them are good ones. And so the focus and discipline to accept sunk cost. Hey, I don't care that we've already invested $100,000 on that. It's not a good use of future resources for us to win there. And most people can't do that. So, two things that I keep on telling people, discipline and focus, one. The second is protect your mental health and upgrade your mental health because how we're speaking to ourselves really, really matters.
Jerry, that's such an unexpected answer, and I really appreciate it. The fact that you started with love your people and then 2, your mental health. And I think you were answering that not just for you, but also for your people and the people on your teams. And for so long, for much of history, protecting your mental health was just a luxury, right? It was for people who had the time and space and money to do that. And you're kind of flipping it, saying, well, if we want to continue to reach people and to really impact people, we start by protecting our mental health. And
it's the most important thing.
It really is. It really is.
At the highest levels of what we do, your mindset is what separates you. That's at least what I have learned over the course of my career. And so, yes, we should be talking about it. Yes, we should be talking about, mental health issues. I had a friend recently, who committed suicide. And the thing that I think about, Katie, is in the last 30 seconds of his life, what was the story he was telling himself that made that the best choice that he could make? Because super successful guy, college athlete, not the guy that you would pick out of the lineup. And so those are real things. And, I think, when you look at how mental health impacts people, in many ways, it starts with finances. And so if the economy is starting to pull back and the dollars aren't quite as robust as they were in the past, it's going to create some friction in marriages, in relationships, inside your business, an imposter syndrome for the person who historically has run this great business, and I don't understand why it's not working now. It's like, okay, the world just has changed a little bit. We are all still the same people. I still love you. I still love my wife. All those things are fantastic. And so if we can just keep on coming back here and have conversations, not only with each other that are kind, but to ourselves that are kind, the business will happen, right? There's always dollars being traded in a marketplace. It may not be where you've historically performed before.
Mm-hmm.
I have a manufacturer in Denver, served multifamily developments. Well, with the uncertainty and interest rates, that's kind of pulled back. But you know what's going really, really well? Renovations of homes, because people aren't trading out of 3% interest rates for 8%. So they're making massive
Mm.
investments in their home. The dollars are there. We just have to go find them. We have to not hold on to this legacy of like, well, we've always wanted multifamily. Yeah, but you're not going to win today. So do you want to hold on to that and lose? Or do you want to rotate into a new space where you can compete? And I think that's the piece that people have to be thinking about, because sometimes we get caught up that our business is our identity,
Yeah.
and it's not. I mean, I had that, at 26 when we broke that company up and sold it off. I mean, my identity was Mr. Soccer in the community, and so when I left, I remember waking up the next day and it was like, what is my purpose? This is
Mm.
crazy. And I didn't have that thing that I could hold on to. And it took me at least 6 months, to regain the perspective that a business does not define me. My family, my friends, and my values define me. And that's how I've tried to live my whole life, is showing up in ways that are authentic and kind. And boy, let me just raise my hand. I have missed the mark a million times on that, but I've gotten way closer because it's been top of mind for me. But yeah, there are businesses that are going to go out of business in
Yeah.
2023, 2024, and that happens all the time. I think there's going to be more of them that happen in 2024. I hope for those people. I pray for those people that their mental fortitude and their support, their community around them, right, buoys them into places and would celebrate them just as they would if they had made the Inc. 500 list. Because that's when we really need you. When you're on the Inc. 500, you don't need anyone to cheer you on, right? Life is good. It's when shit gets hard, that's when we need to have real conversations.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I think it's important for people to hear. I think when you face that moment of maybe having to close the doors of your business and admitting failure and trying to start again from that point, it's not easy. It's excruciatingly difficult, to your point, because partially your identity has been very tied up in that failed business. And
Yeah.
you asked a really important question. Even though your business hadn't failed, you exited it, but it was,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden now that wasn't your identity. And your question was, what is my purpose? In a way, I want you to speak to and inspire the people in the audience who might have to close the doors of their business, or might have to downsize, or close a large portion of it and kind of start
Mm-hmm.
anew, and who are asking those kinds of questions. What is your purpose in positively impacting all of these people in this world? What is that mission for you? Why does it matter to you?
Why does it matter to me? Because for me, life should be super fun. One of my life goals is to have more fun than anyone else. And I couldn't imagine spending, I don't know what the percentage is, but 25 or 28% of our working hours in a week working in a place where we didn't enjoy the work that we were doing. And so I really believe, I don't know why, but I really believe that God gave me the skill set to make an impact through business. I could do it in other places, but this is just a place where it aligns for me personally, it aligns for me professionally, to invest in people, to love people, to bring people forward. And so that's where I choose to do it. And it's, I don't know, isn't it way more fun when you're winning, Katie? Like when you've had those moments where you're like, this is the best. I've never walked off a field where I lost and was like, that was an unbelievable experience. I'm so glad I just had it. It's like, it's not it. But
Jerry,
it
there's a
just,
thousand ways you could have answered that question. And just for reference, you don't know a whole lot about me, but like that speaks to me. I mean, given the
what was
opportunity.
it for? What was it for you then? I'd love it.
No, my answer is pretty similar. I feel like you've used the word alignment, and
Mm-hmm.
you talked about God. I feel like if God has given you, Jerry, certain gifts and talents and abilities, and if you can make a decision on how to manifest or bring into being or create those gifts into the world in a way that it lights you up and it positively impacts and benefits other people, to me, that there's like some level of optimization there.
Yes.
And like, to me, that is so exciting. And the vehicle of entrepreneurship is a very powerful vehicle to do that, because it is a vehicle that provides resources. It understands marketing, which creates awareness. It builds a network, and it's like a very high level of fun, right? If you have all of those components together. So I love how you shared and expressed that without shame, without apology. It was like, Katie, given the choice, if we could do this and it's fun, like why would we not do it in a way that it's fun? And
I think to that point, I do believe that I was given gifts. I also believe that I've worked really hard to hone those gifts. And I'm so grateful for the people who invested in me. Heck, I hate the whole notion of a self-made person, because we are all made up of 1,000 people who poured into us. But for me, I used this word before, irresponsible. I think it would be irresponsible not to use those gifts. And so for me, I'm chasing my potential.
Yeah.
That's what I'm after. I'm chasing my potential. And, I think about these things because I do think about conscious intention. What do I want people to say to my wife and kids at my funeral? I am so clear about that. And when you're so clear at like this little end stage, we're all walking, running, trudging, to our grave, just at different paces, but we're all headed there. My mom always said, no one makes it out of life alive. She's right.
No, yeah.
And so we all have the same thing. Just depends on what our horizon is. And so having that clarity of what I want people to say to my family, that Jerry was a good, nice person. He invested in me. I'm better for him knowing me. He took some risks. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't, but I'm glad that I knew him. And, when you use that as your North Star, your actions just become obvious. Like, it's just nice to like help people and do things. And, my first intention, part of my morning routine is I will add an insane amount of joy to the world today. And I've been doing that for years and years and years. I've trained my mind. I believe you're in control of your mind. And so my world I'm always noticing that's happening around. Like, Katie, your hair looks amazing today. That's not like a contrived like compliment. That's like, when we got on, I was like, her hair looks amazing. And
thanks.
The mind is just constantly noticing things. And because it's who I want to be, I also have the courage and the conviction to say that, because most people would just say, "Oh, it looks really, really good today," and never tell you that. But I know that I saw a little smile run across your face when I said that, because it feels good when people notice and see who you are and how you're showing up, and that's super cool. So yeah, that's chasing my potential, making sure that I'm very clear about what the end state is, and then just working backwards of how we're going to go use the gifts into the universe.
Well, dang it, Jerry, that's super inspiring. It really is. It's exciting. It lights me up. It gets me fired up. There's a lot of alignment between what you do and how you view the world, and what I do and how I view the world. And this is why I was so curious to get on with you is, what is that special piece that is very Jerry? And I feel like I've seen it, and I think it's really cool. It's exciting. And
I'm sorry. I just have to interrupt you just for a half a second. I'm not doing anything special that anyone else couldn't do. I'm just choosing to be my authentic self and to manifest it forward. Most people stay in their head. Well, what if I fail? What if I fail on this? What if I only impact 1 million people? We're still pretty cool, right? That doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to go down that path. But there's just pieces of life that people feel like are out of their reach. And my answer is, it's not out of your reach. Life is a choice you make. So if you want to go do that, go make choices that align there. My wife walked into our house in August 2020. We're in the middle of the pandemic. She said to me, "Sweetheart, what do you think about selling our house and traveling the country?" I was like, well, that is not exactly what I thought you were going to say. So give me a hot minute to think about that one. And in October 2020, we had sold our house and we traveled the country with our two young kids who we homeschooled. It created a once in a lifetime opportunity. And people said to us, "I wish I could do that." And my answer was, you can, you're just choosing not to. And so when people say, "Oh, it's interesting or cool or inspiring," my answer is, you can do it too. You should do it. That is your responsibility. Because imagine waking up every day. I tell you what, this is my profession, but it's also my hobby. It's what I love to do.
Yes.
When I come downstairs at 4 o'clock, I flip my laptop open. I'm sending messages. I'm learning. I love this. Imagine spending your life in pursuit of something that sets your soul on fire. Go do that. You owe it not only to yourself, but to the community and to your family to go pursue that. Because showing up as Eeyore, I'm sorry, I don't know anyone who's really and truly happy showing up as Eeyore. So I'm sorry, I'm very flattered by your words. I am. Thank you. But I also want to be clear that anyone can do this. Does it take work? Yes, it takes work. I'm not like minimizing any of those things. But you owe it to yourself to go try and get your potential. Go run it down every single day. And that to me is, I don't know, I think that's the most fun that you can have in the world.
It is the most fun that you can have in the world. And in so many ways, I feel like we're just getting started in our conversation, Jerry.
I'd love to come back. You're terrific.
Thanks. I know there's people who are like, their fire is being kindled even greater because of what you're saying. And so what are the best ways for people to connect with you, either get your books or start their journey with you and your coaching?
Yeah. So two best places to go. One is provenchaos.com. That's the website. One of the things I'll share with your community, I do office hours every Thursday from 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern time. And it's an opportunity for senior leaders. It's free. You just register and you come onto a Zoom call. I never quite know who's going to show up. Usually there's 5 to 12 people who are there. And it's just a matter of people saying like, "Hey, I have this thing going on. Katie, like, how would you handle this?" And you always get me, but you also get other senior leaders who may say like, "Oh my gosh, I had this thing, I did this, or I have this resource. Let me send you a contact." It's amazing to watch the relationships that have happened. And I've been doing that since November 2019, before everyone started doing it. But that's one great place. And then the other place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can just search my name, Jerry McNamara. I'm pretty active over there, and I like to engage over there too.
Okay, awesome. And we will have a link to those links that Jerry just shared with us. We'll have those in the show notes. Jerry McNamara, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you. It's so great to finally meet you.
Katie, I have enjoyed and appreciated your energy, and we're going to have more conversations because I can tell there's a level of alignment in Mindshare, and I've watched your face glow a couple times where I thought, "Oh, I'm hitting on something that Katie really believes," and so I would appreciate the opportunity to do that with you. Thank you for sharing me with your audience.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everybody who's listening, this is what's working now.